做一下，我先拿中文做一下开场白，然后欢迎大家来我们这次。OK， 好，我们今天呢是我们 PCE 的第227届的这个月会。那我们 PCE 也从03年开始成立以来，每个月都在坚持做月会。我们的这个课题呢，包括了我们的2代身份的认同啊，1代的身份认同，然后有对我们的情商育儿的一些探讨等等，涉及了许多的话题。那我们今天呢，非常荣幸的邀请到了我们的一些2代小朋友们，他们好可爱啊！我这个摄像头突然关掉了。好，我们的 guest speakers 有Abby 肖，还有 Brianna， 还有 Athena， welcome， 谢谢你们今天的到来。那我再花1分钟拿中文简单介绍一下。OK，I will start in English in just 1 minute。Brianna, Athena 还有 Abby 呢，都是我们之前的一个项目IHI 和 PCE 合作的一个项目，来讲一讲我们的亚裔文化历史的。那大家也知道，我们去年到今年然后有各个州都开始把我们的亚裔文化课纳入了教程体系当中，但是在这个落地的过程中，其实还是会遇到很多的问题然后以及包括过去的这一些历史，对于我们来说是沉重，但是是需要我们去了解知道的。那孩子们他们也在课堂上去进行了学习。我们还有一个成人组，我是带成人组的，我们的另外一位 facilitator Jen， 他就是带我们的youth track。好，那我现在呢，把大家Sorry, I'm just going to do this very quickly. I'm going to spotlight our guest speakers. And again, thank you so much for attending today's event. And we have so much honor to have both of you, 3 of you. We have 2 groups of presentations, and it's going to be very, very exciting. And today we gather here as a community united by the common vision of embracing change and embracing each other. And our purpose is to break through the challenges faced by our Asian American youth and families. Not merely through words, but through collective actions that inspire and uplift. And our guest speakers will show us their community projects that are focused on those related challenges. And we're going to ask them a few more questions about how it has been and what's going on recently. And to start today's event, we're going to have an activity first. So I want all of you to pull out a piece of paper, if you may, or just imagine with your brain. Okay, so here is the instruction. I want you to gently close your eyes, gently close your eyes, and imagine that you are 13 or 14 years old again. And if you are just at that age, I would invite you to imagine that in 20 years later, what would it look like? And for the parents, I want you to think that you have just started high school and today is your first day. You're walking into the school, and I want you to put yourself into the shoes of that 13 or 14 years old. What do you see? What do you feel? Smell? Taste? What do you hear? And what thoughts are running through your mind? Just take a moment to situate yourself into that mental state. And then I want to ask you a few questions. That 13 years old. And again, for the youth, for the 20 years later. Okay, now please gently open your eyes. And please take out a pen and jot down a few responses to the following questions. if you're comfortable, or you can just type your answers in the chat box. The first question is, what makes you happy? What makes you happy as a 13, 14 years old? Or in 20 years later, what would make you happy? And the second question is, what are you most hopeful about? Or what is your biggest dream in life? What does it feel like a dream? And now please imagine that you're walking into a classroom and you see an adult smiling at you. And they introduce themselves and tell you their life story. They then tell you that they're the older version of you. As that 13 years old version of you, what are you mostly proud of? Right, thinking back, the 13-year-old version of you, what would you be mostly proud of you for who you are today? And for the youth, imagine in 20 years later, what would the thing that you'll be mostly proud of for yourself? Okay. And if you're comfortable, please type your questions here. Oh, type your answers here, sorry. I'll paste the questions listed here. And here are two more questions that are very important. If you ask this adult, which is the older version of you, about where they're living now, and they would tell you about their immigrant experience moving to America, what part of the adult's immigration experience surprises you the most as a 13 years old? What are the challenges that they went through that make you wonder and ponder and make you feel like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Or that, oh, I feel very inspired by that. And the last question, which is closely linked to today's topic. The adult tells you about how Asian Americans are treated in America. What is your response as a teenager? How do you feel? Okay. If you have limited time to write things down, I would highly encourage you to mainly respond to the last question. The adult tells you about how Asian Americans are treated in America. What is your response as a teenager? How do you feel? 好，最后一个问题，大家也可以用中文回答，我会帮助翻译的。如果这个成年后的你告诉13岁的你，我们 Asian Americans 是怎么样被对待的，或者是我们今天所经历的这些事情，以及过去的几十年中发生的事情，你会如何回应？你会有什么样的感觉？All right. May I please invite our guest speakers to share what they think and feel first? You don't have to respond to all the questions, just a few of them. Abby, would you like to be the first one, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. So like, well, for like the dream one, like the biggest dream one, that one was big actually. I'm going to skip past that because I don't even know what my biggest dream is. But what makes me happy right now is like spending time with my family and my pet and like just going on bike rides, kind of like the simple things.
Mm-hmm.
Answers.
That's very lovely. That is very lovely. And what about Brianna and Athena? What about you?
Something that makes me happy is my friends and my family, obviously. And then I also really like art, and creating art is fun. And then I play hockey, so that makes me happy too.
Wow. What about you, Athena?
Right now, what makes me happy is my family, my friends, and just life in general.
Is there, I have a big question for all of you. Is there like a big challenge that you had broken through, or like you are pushing through it, that made you feel like really rewarded or like inspired, that make you feel like, oh, that might be a part of my dream someday? It's a big question. Sorry. May take a bit time to think about that. Yeah. But thank you so much for sharing about those little things, like, but very important things, like spending time with our families. Those are so important. Oh, all right, Brianna, are you ready to share with us?
I'm not really sure how this would like affect my dreams, but a challenge that I overcame that I'm really proud of is when I broke my arm, and I was like really scared because I broke it when I was playing hockey, and I was really scared to go back on the ice, but I like overcame my fear, and I went back, and it's been really fun ever since.
Mm-hmm. That was big. Oh, okay. And Abby and Athena, is there anything you would like share about this question, or you can just skip it? We can have, yeah.
For me, I think it's also kind of sports related. I like recently figured out something in golf. And I've been working on it for a long time because I only started golf like a year ago, and I'm trying to get onto the team. So I feel like this really upped my chances, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Mm-hmm. That's very lovely. And I know that like practicing sports would really help with building resilience. And I've seen that in all of you, like in that during that program. So, and is there anything else that you would like to share, Athena?
I think for me is coming out of my comfort zone more, because I get like really nervous when I like socialize a lot in person. So I think just adjusting more to that would be like really helpful for me in the future if I have like a big presentation in college and I have to present to like a class or like speaking about something in public.
Mm-hmm. And that is wow. And that you're here today presenting to so many people here. So I guess you're ready for that, or at least in progress. Congratulations. And I would go back to this question that actually Jen has listed. And I would like to ask the adults in this Zoom room, if you're telling the 13 years old version of you about the challenges or the other types of experiences you have experienced as an immigrant in America or North America, what are the things that you would tell? What are the things you would tell, like, about the things that are nice or things that are very challenging? Yeah, I would invite, you may just turn on your camera and turn your mic on to just share. 对，如果有家长愿意直接去分享的话，可以直接打开说，然后 again 可以直接就是讲中文，没有问题，我会翻译的。我刚刚看到玉溪有，不知道这样发音对不对，有打开麦克，你有什么想要分享的吗？好，大家都比较害羞。I guess everyone's very shy today, or maybe it's just very late. Okay, sure. Well, with the youth track, would you like to share, like, what do you expect are the things that your older version of you would share as not the first generation, but the second generation of as immigrants or / other identities, but Asian American? What do you think that your older version of you would tell you? I'm sorry, Abby, would you like to start? Go ahead first.
I honestly don't know because that's just such a long time from now, but I guess older me would be glad to not be like me now. Because like as we grow, we mature, and I know that as I keep growing, I'll keep maturing, and I'm pretty happy with where I am now, but when I'm older, I will probably be glad to have been who I am now to become who I will be, if that makes sense.
Can you explain a little bit more on that?
Well, I feel like just for me, it's like how I am and how I behave now has an effect on my future self, if that makes sense. And I am glad to just exist and to be myself because I know that no matter what, I will be okay. Like, that's what I meant.
Okay. What are the things that you would get rid of, like within 20 years or in the future? Just sorry. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to answer this question. But yeah, okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what about Brianna and Athena?
I'm also not really sure what my older self would tell me, but maybe just to like not give up and just keep trying and persevere, and hopefully that's would yeah, I feel like that's what they would try, what my older self would try to tell me. And Athena, what about you?
I think my older self would try to tell me to like stop like being so shy. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like you're all trying to just grow into a better version of yourself. And I'm not sure what I would tell the 13 years old version of me, but about my dreams or like giving some wise tips, I don't think I would do that. But if there's something I would tell the 13 years version of me about my experience in North America, I would say that there are all sorts of challenges, and there are a lot of things that you have to push through just by yourself. Nobody else can do it for you. But still, there are so many things that you do on a meso level. You collaborate with your community members or just in a very small group. Like you can make some change in at least in your small bubble, and that really matters. Even if you cannot change the world or like influence lots of people, but as long as you're trying, I think that really matters. And yeah, thank you all for sharing this. And you know that the original version of this activity was a mirror window activity that I believe all of you have done before. And I would just encourage everyone to do it afterwards. If you have time, the mirror window activity is basically you have a piece of paper and you fold it as if it's a hamburger. And then on the left side, you write down how others see you, or you draw it down. How do you think like other people are seeing you? And that is a window. And on the right side, you have a mirror. You are going to write down or draw down what you think of yourself. And that is something you can compare that you would see. You might sometimes see something that very surprise yourself. Okay, so without further ado, since I think Jen is still handling some tech issues, I'm very sorry. I'm just taking over her spot. But there are a few things I would like to introduce about PCE before we start our presentations and the questions. The first thing that I would like to share is our organization. Okay, here we go. Okay, I just want to check that can everyone see what I'm sharing? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to do it in Mandarin. 那我们的 PCE Club 是一个非营利性的非宗教、非政治的教育组织。那么自2003年成立以来就是19年，快10年了。那我们也是一直在每个月都坚持去做月会，希望给大家传递一些更好的一些经验理念，或者说更多是关注在共同学习上面。那我们也在不断的去坚持学习，然后宣传情商育儿，专注去践行育儿育己、成长即成功的一个理念。那我们的这个宗旨呢是这个育儿育己、成长即成功，所有的活动也是围绕这个东西来展开的。然后我们的 PCE Club 也就是为大家提供一个学习和讨论的平台。大家如果有任何和育儿相关的问题，或者是育己、自我成长的这些话题，我们都可以带到我们的 PCE 群当中来讨论。那如果还没有加入我们的 PCE 的 任何的这个是免费的公益群的话，大家可以扫这个左下方的二维码。那如果你已经进入了我们的任何一个远程群或者微信群这个也可以不用扫进去了。那我们是希望能够给大家提供个学习交流的平台呢，然后去陪伴大家，去不断的提高我们的个人和子女的情商，关注心理健康，然后也增进和子女的交流，发展健全的真我。我们有一个网站 PCE Club 的org， 然后大家如果需要去加入我们的会员，我们的会员每年都会有一些特别的课程，然后对于我们的会员来说，大部分也都是完全免费的这些高质量的课程比如说之前的我们的这个罗志忠老师的这些课然后还有一些我们的这个情商育儿的课都在上面，是对于付费会员来说是免费的，那大家可以通过这个方式来加入。然后我们还有自己的 YouTube channel， 大家可以去 follow。好，那我先介绍到这里，然后大家有什么问题，可以随时来问我。那在接下来呢，我也会问大家问我们的 Youth Track 一些问题。Okay, so I'm going to pass the mic to Jen, and we just finished our introduction to the PCE, and we also finished our opening activity. And now it's your time to do the youth reflection time. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I am so sorry that I'm late. There was a big car accident and I was not able to join on time. I would love for the guest speakers to introduce themselves. They were amazing students of mine through the youth program, and I would love for them to just maybe spend a minute, talk about who they are, where they're from, their background, how old they are, and then we have a little curated like Q&A that we were hoping you guys could help answer. Brianna, Abby, up to you guys. Athena, who wants to go first? Abby, go for it.
Okay, well, I'm Abby. I'm a rising sophomore in Ohio. I'm 15 years old, and I really like history, I guess. So the AALP program was like right up my alley because we did some history stuff there.
Abby, where are you from? What is your background in the space, etc.?
I'm from Ohio. Like my background as in why I did AALP, or
yeah, I guess your rationale for signing up for it, and like I guess your key takeaways from the course so far.
Well, I signed up for it because I was really interested in the oral history part of AALP. And my key takeaways was that like low key, high key, it kind of changed my life a bit. Because of AALP, I did like a bunch of stuff after, which I guess we'll get into more detail later, but it's really, I didn't, when I joined, I didn't think it would be like so life altering as it was, but for me, it really did do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Athena, do you want to go next?
I am 12 years old and I'm going into 7th grade. I'm from Connecticut, and the reason why I signed up for ALP is because I kind of wanted to step out of my comfort zone a little bit and try new things and learn new things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Brianna, what about you?
My name is Brianna. I'm going into 8th grade and I'm 13 years old. The reason I signed up for AALP is because I wanted to learn a little bit more about like the history and how to and like leadership a bit, and start participating in different forms of activism.
Thank you guys so much for the introduction. It's really incredible how engaged these students were at such a young age with the complex topics that we went through together as a class. I guess to start off our Q&A, the first question is a bit long, and feel free to take as much time as you need to think about it. If you do need more time, you can always go last, and then, we can just take it from there. So the first question is, what actions do you consider as forms of activism, whether practiced by adults or youth? And how would you personally define activism in terms of what that means for yourself, your daily actions, and your long-term plans?
So personally, I consider activism to be just standing up for underprivileged groups and helping them get more privileges and recognition. And ways to participate in activism, I think, are to just advocate for them and help them in any way, and just to make sure that you support them, and just even like a small word of encouragement can go a long way.
Athena, do you want to follow that?
So I basically agree with what Brianna said. It's like just comforting people and talking to them in positive ways, and like increasing their confidence with some positive comments.
Awesome. And then lastly, Abby.
For me, like I agree also with what Brianna and Athena said about activism. The forms of activism that I feel like I'm most familiar with are like legislative action and education. Legislative action being like drafting bills and stuff, and like just like contacting representatives and deciding who you vote for. And for education, I think that's really important because you can't fight for a cause if you don't know exactly what you're fighting for.
Got it. That's really insightful as well. Awesome. So the second question is more curated towards the program that we highlighted with IHI and Asian American History. So as an Asian youth navigating the school environment, could you briefly sort of talk about the main challenges that you encounter related to your identity at school, maybe at sports practice, in terms of just how other people view you as Asian and how that makes you feel or not feel?
For me, like my personal challenges in identity, I feel like it had a lot to do with lack of education, because I never really learned about Asian Americans. So I felt kind of invisible, and I didn't feel secure in myself because I didn't really know who I was. And I don't know if this is like just in Ohio, but like I've experienced a lot of lack of solidarity, not just like between AAPI. Because like in my school, there's a lot of Asian people. So like you would think we would be like this, like super connected, right? But it's kind of the opposite. There's a lot of like race jokes that aren't really jokes, like math and grade jokes, like we're Asians, not Bajans. Kind of weird. And then like, if you don't go to math club, are you really Asian? And some people use like historical slurs. And I feel like a lot of this is because it's to separate yourself from your Asianness by being racist towards yourself to fit in, which is like where lack of solidarity comes in.
Totally. I also definitely felt that growing up. So I guess for a little bit of context, I am 24 years old. So definitely not as bright and young as the guest speakers we have today, but relatively young with regard to like the parent population. And I would say that growing up, there was a lot of sort of self-induced negativity surrounding Asian American identity. So not wanting to fit in with the stereotypes or wanting to defy the stereotypes in a way that wasn't necessarily productive. And so a lot of my friends, for example, didn't like that we were expected to be smart. And so went out of their way to do things that would label them as something else because they didn't want the broader label of, oh, like all Asians are the same. So it definitely resonate with what Abby said. Does anyone else have anything they want to share on this?
I agree with Abby about like self-hating in order to not feel like you're confined to the stereotypes. And also a lot of the times, nobody has ever said anything like directly to me, but I've heard other people like talk about other Asians in my community behind their back and like say rude things about them. And sometimes I wonder if they do that to me, which honestly kind of a scary thought. And for sports practices, a lot of the time Asians get stereotyped as being like bad at athletics. And as I mentioned, I play hockey. So sometimes that happens during hockey.
Definitely. I played tennis growing up and definitely felt the same way. Athena, what about you?
I kind of agree with what Brianna and Abby said about like people saying negative stuff to you. A lot of people in my school, they're just like that. A lot of my classmates say like rude things about people's cultures. Sometimes behind their backs, and sometimes like directly to them.
Definitely. And I think a reason that this can be really hard for youth to deal with is because there's simply nothing they can do about it. Like we can't change the fact that we're Asian. And so one way of sort of combating the racial stereotypes and self-hate and negative self-image out there is through activism. And so could you guys just briefly talk about the forms of Asian American activism that you've sort of participated in over the course of the time after our class ended? Yeah.
For me, I heard about like a youth group, so I joined a youth group that like uplifts Asian American voices. And from there, I heard about this opportunity called the Asian American Foundation Summit, which was like a 2-day conference in New York about like being Asian American, things like activism, that kind of stuff. And there, which is kind of crazy, I met someone from my city, in my state, which you don't expect, which I didn't expect it. And this person, she introduced me to like this local organization in my state. And then from there, I learned that they were like supporting a bill. It was called House Bill 171. And this bill would like give all Ohioan teachers the resources needed to teach AAPI history, including other histories as well, like Black history, Jewish history, Appalachian history. So it's a really great bill. And they gave me the opportunity to go to my state house to talk with like the staffers of senators and representatives to like advocate for this bill. Right now, it's still going through the House floor, but like fingers crossed it's going to go through. And I'm just really thankful that I was able to participate legislatively just for like this bill that could possibly change lives.
That's amazing. I think legislation is such an important way that, one small piece of paper or an amendment can make such a big impact on like a large portion of the population. So that's really incredible, Abby. Athena, Brianna, what about you guys?
Apart from our community project that we made, I've just been researching a lot about AAPI, like the history, because we don't get taught a lot of it in school. So I've been researching a lot of that to educate myself more. And so I can use my information to advocate and support AAPI and Asian Americans.
No, that is so incredible. I think education is something that is paramount to making any impact at all. It's really hard to educate others when we're not fully educated on the topic ourselves. So I think that is such a smart first move to sort of get involved in activism with. Brianna or Athena, what about you?
I've just been doing the same as Brianna, doing it along with her.
Yeah, that's awesome. And last question, maybe Brianna, you could speak a little bit to this. A bit of a tough question, but if you had to give any advice to parents or adults on what they could do to better support you guys with your journey towards activism and identity development, what would it be?
I would say just to like support your children, and not like, don't make assumptions, and also don't be too harsh on them. Like, we're still kids, we're still growing up, we're still figuring things out. Basically, I would just say support your kids and help them and guide them in any course that they choose to take.
Okay, amazing. And then last question, Athena, I was wondering whether you could help out with this. Are there any ways that adults tend to minimize the feelings of youth? And are there any ways that they could maybe keep that in mind moving forward as well?
I think maybe some are setting their expectations too high and having their standards too high. So they expect their children to achieve more than they can at their age, or like something around that.
Yeah, so maybe being more understanding around the fact that perhaps your goals are different, and keeping that in mind moving forward. Is that a good way to summarize that? Okay, amazing. So that is the brief sort of Q&A session that we had just to prime the speakers and the participants on their lovely presentations, which I'm so excited to see. Maybe before we move into that portion, we can give everyone maybe a 5-minute break just to grab some water, use the restroom, and then we can reconvene at 8:50. Does that work for folks? Okay, amazing. Again, thank you everyone for being here, and see you guys very soon. Okay. Awesome. So the way that we want to structure the next portion of this session is we want to give the students, the youth participants, oops, I'm so sorry. That was my timer for when the session should begin again. We should give some time for the youth participants to present on their community activism post the course ending. And so with that being said, the students have prepared a sort of PowerPoint presentation, each around 5 to 10 minutes long. And I would love to turn the floor over to them. Whoever wants to go first, feel free to do so. Does anyone have a preference?
We can go first.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So for a little bit of context, Brianna and Athena work together for their community project. They're like best friends from school. They like live really close to each other. And I think the collaboration opportunity was amazing. And both of them did such an amazing job. So awesome. Athena, Brianna, whenever you guys feel ready, feel free to share screen.
Okay. So welcome to our presentation.
It's by Athena and
Brianna. So a little bit about us. We kind of already explained this, but these are some pictures from our lives, our friends, our family, and our pets. So for the class that we took, we had to create a community project.
And what was our community project about? We chose to do our project on the model minority myth because we felt that we resonated with it the most. So our project was mainly about Asian stereotypes, spreading awareness, and how these stereotypes should not define who we are in our personal lives. We believe that all races should be equal.
What exactly is the model minority myth? The model minority myth is based on stereotypes. Asian Americans are the most affected by this and have a long history of being this model minority. The model minority is a narrative where Asian Americans are expected to achieve in academics. This can be further perpetuated by stereotypical tiger moms who push their children to be better than everyone else and nerdy dads who have non-leadership roles in STEM fields. This myth characterizes Asians as polite citizens who have exceeded the general population in terms of achievement, thanks to a mix of natural brilliance and hard work put forth by them.
Who is involved and affected in our community project? Our communities. We hung up posters in multiple parts of our communities and taught them about the model minority myth. By simply reading and talking about our posters, our communities are helping us to spread awareness. Our families. By listening to us and encouraging us, our families help fuel our passion for our battle for equality. Our friends. They helped us spread our posters in their neighborhood and supported us through our movement. So, everyone who sees our posters are affected by it by simply taking the time out of their day to read them and talk about them. They become more educated and learn how harmful stereotypes are. However, the group most affected by this are Asians. We spoke to a few Asians in our communities, and they're very touched that people haven't stayed silent for what is right and have spread awareness to everyone in the community. We also have interviewed some of our relatives and got their opinions on our project and had some advice given to us from them.
Yeah, and we noticed in our communities after hanging the posters up for a couple weeks, there was a significant amount of, it seemed like a changed like atmosphere sort of. We noticed that especially, this was back during the school year, and especially during class, we felt that we were more seen for not just our academic achievements and for who we are as well. So this is how we made an impact. So we created an art project, which is a collage of us and the stereotypical model minority. And this might be familiar since we presented it last year, I think it was. And we shared who we truly were and that there's more to us than the stereotypes that people label us as. We also created posters, and we hung these up and spread awareness throughout our community. Passerby saw these posters and have become more educated about the model minority myth and stereotyping. We also created another art project, which was how being stereotyped makes us feel. And those who stereotype us can see how we feel when this happens and hopefully try to make a change. And we also tried to break this myth productively by simply speaking up more and trying to get the message across that we're more than just who we are as the stereotype. Like, we're more than just smart Asians. And finally, we've taught others about how to contribute. So we talked to our friends and family about how they can support us.
Our collage. The collage we created has different aspects of our lives and also parts of our culture and the stereotypes we often receive as Asian Americans. We created it as a way to show that we are more than just the stereotypes people often think of us as, and we can have other aspirations other than the ones people set for us. In our collage, you will see pictures from our own daily lives, such as pictures of our friends, families, or our hobbies. We feel these images encapsulate who we really are as people, as well as images of what is generally considered to be stereotypically Asian, such as different stereotypical careers. Also, there are some elements of our culture to show that we value our Asian identities.
So here's the collage. As I said, it probably looks a bit familiar. As you can see, there's different images of us, our friends, our family, and then there's things that are generally considered stereotypically Asian, like being a doctor, and there's different aspects of our culture too. Here's some of the posters that we made. So when you can click on the poster and then enlarge it if you want to read it. We'll put the links to everything in the chat at the end. And this first poster, we have a lot of statistics about racism that Asians face, and then also how the model minority myth impacts racism. And this next poster is a lot just about an overview of the model minority myth. And this other poster is about stereotypes and how we don't identify with just these stereotypes.
So this is our second collage. We based it on our emotions and how we feel when people say hurtful words and stereotype us.
So I recently took a collaging class and I spread my information to Athena and we created this together. This was done digitally and we took different pictures that were the internet and we just felt really resonated with how we felt, and that's how we created this.
The model minorities myths, roots in racism. Oftentimes, many don't realize that stereotyping people hurts. Stereotypes, including the model minority myth, erase the individuality in us. The model minority myth is responsible mostly for the invisibility of Asian racism most of us face. As lately, with the rise of COVID-19 virus, racism against Asians have increased. These stereotypes may seem positive as they characterize Asians as rule-abiding and more successful than the average person, but they're a way to hide the struggles Asians face. Because of this myth, many Asian Americans have a fear of failing or not living up to the tough standards of the myth. It also teaches Asian Americans to take care of the problem ourselves without troubling others.
Asians have a long history of facing racism. However, many people do not even know about these issues. For example, in the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, or when the California Supreme Court determined that Chinese people could not testify against white defendants in 1854, and in 1898, when the U.S. Supreme Court refused to let Wong Kim-ark back into the United States during the Chinese Exclusion Act, even though it was his right as a birthright citizen of the U.S., per the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. However, the average person doesn't even know about these events because of the erasure of Asian racism. Even though all of these events were hundreds of years ago, it's still a current issue. Because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, Asians were used as a scapegoat or someone to blame for the lockdown. Asian American accomplishments have been used in a pawn of the oppression of anyone who isn't as a person of color. These achievements are used as a benchmark for other races to aspire to. It drives a wedge between Asian Americans and other races. The myth implies that Asian Americans are doing well and that other groups could achieve success if they simply put in more effort, had closer family ties, and got over their oppressive pasts. It puts Asian Americans on a pedestal while everyone else envies them from below. The model minority myth is used as a support to downplay the effects of racism and discrimination of people of color in the United States.
So we can put the link of our slide in the chat, and you can click on the posters that we did to look at them in a closer view.
Yeah, and this is the link to where we got statistics from the first posters, and you can also click on the various links and look at some of the sources that we used. Thank you.
Wow, thank you guys so much for sharing this. This was just so well done, from the thought process behind the collage making to the actual collages themselves. You guys are so artistically talented. And just the way that you synthesize all your learnings into this presentation was really, really just incredible. A few follow-up questions for you guys. So you had mentioned that you put these collages up around your school, around your community, and some of them perhaps don't have much context for those that weren't aware that you were pursuing this project. Did you guys face any questions? What did people ask you? How is the general response there?
So along with some of the art projects we made, we put little captions next to it to help give some more clarity, but we still got some questions obviously some parts I guess were still confusing, which makes sense, and it's good that they're trying to learn. And we got some questions about what stereotypes that we face, and just a lot about the model minority myth itself and what it really is, because I don't really feel like a lot of people really know what it is, since it's not really taught anywhere, or it's not really any, like, no one really speaks about it a lot. And Athena, what about you?
Some people have not a lot, but just some people have like made rude remarks about our posters.
Right. Is this mostly like students from your classes, or?
Yeah, some classmates.
Personally, I didn't experience this in my school, but
yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Did you think that the general reaction from your classmates was positive, with a few bad apples, or what was the, I guess, larger population reaction like?
So basically most of my classmates felt positive about it, and then it's just,
yeah, that's super fair. I mean, there are always some mean people, but I think it's amazing that the general reception was so positive. And this is something that takes a lot of courage to do. Like when I saw the posters and you guys were talking about how you had sort of shared them all over your community, like my heart rate started to increase. I was like, oh my gosh, it's kind of terrifying to put yourself out there like that. Can you guys walk through sort of the emotional pathway that that entire experience was, and how you guys feel about the experience today?
I was really nervous when I first did it, and it was like even really like nervous just like hanging them up.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be like feel like judged or anything.
Right.
And I also didn't want people to like treat me any differently because of these issues, unless like of course they were being like rude or anything. But after I did it, which took a lot of courage to actually hang them up, I felt like sort of like a wave of relief that I overcome this fear, and which sort of like told me that I could overcome a lot of things. And it also felt really good because I helped bring awareness around my community, and I helped make a change in the community, which was really great.
Athena, what about you?
I'd say like I relate to a lot of what Brianna said. I feel like while I was hanging the posters up, I got like some stares because people were just like watching me like, what is she doing?
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, you guys mentioned that you ran your ideas through with your relatives and your family, and got some helpful feedback there. Would you mind sharing with us what they said that was helpful and what you chose to incorporate into your project?
A lot of my like friends and family that I talked to them about our project, they just told us that what we were doing was really great, and that we can make a real big change in our communities. And it felt like no matter how like small the actions might seem, it created like a real big change, because personally I saw, but this was in the school year again. So in the school where I hung them up, I felt a lot more seen, like I said. And I feel like their words and encouragement really helped me gain the confidence to go through with my project.
That's amazing. Athena?
A lot of my relatives that I've spoken to were just encouraging me to keep doing what I'm doing right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. Big round of applause. I think I'm just so impressed with everything that you guys have done. Even the presentation itself was just so comprehensive and helpful. So thank you guys so much. I'm so proud of you. And Abby, I'm excited to hear what you have to share as well. I think these two projects are really ideal for showcasing the different ways that you can choose to make an impact in the community. So for Brianna and Athena, that community was their direct community. And that impact is such a good way to sort of bring change from the bottom up. So just changing the microclimates around you and watching that change evolve into something that gets bigger and bigger. Abby worked more on the legislative level, so bringing change from the top down. And I'm really excited to hear how Abby has done that. She has also, made a huge push in terms of curriculum for her school district, and I'm really excited to hear what Abby has to share.
Right. Let me just share my screen real quick. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep, we can see.
Okay. Hold on. All right. Here we go. So, here we go. That was just like reiterating my about me, which is here. And for like my project, since I really believe in education being super important, I had my project be more focused on like how history curriculums are structured and how API are represented in history curriculums. And these were the two main questions I had. And to answer these questions, I conducted like some interviews with high schoolers, most of them from Ohio, because I live in Ohio and I mostly know people from Ohio, but I was luckily able to conduct 2 interviews with other people on the East Coast from Maryland and Rhode Island. And the general consensus was that although there are some parts of the curriculum that talk about like Asia and Africa and other places besides America and Europe, it is still mostly Eurocentric, and just not a lot is taught about API at all. And this quote I felt like really depicts it very well, that people don't want to talk about race. There's a lot of reasons for it. One could be that people just like don't feel comfortable about it. And another big one is that the US's history of how they treated ethnic minorities doesn't really put America in a very good light. So some people are afraid that if we teach this history, then that'll make kids hate their country. And the historical roots, well, when API are depicted in lessons, they're usually depicted as foreign and thieves. So then I decided to explore like why this is this way. And well, it actually goes back really far, because in 1885, an article characterized Chinese Americans as cunning and deceitful. It said they'll never be of our people, which is like more on that foreign and alien and just not American. And there's a lot more, like the Asiatic Exclusion League, they campaigned to abolish Japanese language schools, mostly against Japanese and Korean people, but they did change their name to encompass all of Asia, anti-Japanese movements, the Yellow Peril. And for thieves, people initially welcomed API because they're nearly, quote, equal to white men, quote, in labor. A bit of a weird thing, but then again, it was the 1800s. But then people started to see API as competition as they started like pouring in, I guess, because the more API that came in, they were willing to take labor for less money because people did discriminate against them. So then that put white Americans out of jobs. So then they felt that API were stealing from America. There's a lot more to talk about, but those were just all the sources I used in my project. And for the activism part, after I did my research, the process I did, or well, actually, my goals, first of all, my short-term goal was to implement some educational material about API history into my middle school. And my long-term goal was to hopefully do that for the high school as well. And the reason that's a long-term goal is because as a rising sophomore, I haven't gone through my entire school's high school curriculum yet. So I hope that when I'm on like the end of my junior year or the beginning of my senior year, then I can start to make change, because then I will be more credible. The process I did for my short-term goal was actually mainly prep 2 whole months, February and March, after the AALP program ended. It was me preparing like the activity, creating it, and meeting with teachers and administration. And the meeting with teachers and administration part, that's why it took so long, because I had no idea where to start. I was like, okay, I have my goal. I want to do this, but I had no idea how I would do this. So I first went to my 8th grade social studies teacher. I was like, yo, where do I start? And she was like, you should probably talk to the dean of the middle school. So I scheduled a meeting with the dean of the middle school, and he was like, you got to go to these people. So then I scheduled a meeting. I went to those people. Those people were like, you actually got to go to these people. So I kind of was tossed like a tennis ball in a tennis court. But eventually, when I got to the right person, we were then able to shortly run the AAPI activity I made in the middle school. And presently, I'm revising this activity based on the feedback from the middle schoolers. And I'm hopefully going to implement this activity permanently this year, probably in May, which is AAPI History Month. And I'm also still meeting with some like board advisors and stuff to hopefully expand this as well. And the activity I made was, well, if I was in middle school, I wouldn't want to listen to this rando high schooler talk to me for 30 minutes about AAPI history. So I wanted this activity to be active. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted the middle schoolers to basically run the thing by themselves. So what I did was that I cut out and I printed out some like pictures of historical AAPI figures, and then I printed out their occupations. I then had the middle schoolers get into groups, and I said, okay, each group, you guys are going to get one figure, and then you're going to try to match this figure to their occupation without Google. And once each group had their figure and occupation, they would then create a story of how their figure got to that occupation. And then after that, it would kind of be like a show and tell. And so overall, the response to the activity was really positive. Around 20 to 30 middle schoolers showed up, and that, well, the room was just so loud. There was so much participation that I had to shout to be heard. And then I had to shout some more because they didn't hear me the first time because they just kept on talking with their friends and stuff. And on the Google form I made, 90% of the people who responded to that activity was really fun and that they would do it again. And this really inspired me because going into this, I was actually really scared. I was really nervous. I was like, to be honest, middle schoolers kind of scare me. So I was scared of them as well. But overall, the response made me like, it made me really happy. And this quote down here, it actually came from one of the girls who did the activity. She said that it gave them an idea about like how people of any ethnicity, of any minority can do something great, like no matter who you are. And I just wanted to share that because it kind of gave me hope. It made me really happy to see that this impact that I worked so hard to make, like actually did have an impact on these kids. And it was just really inspiring to me because in middle school, I was never able to kind of believe that. It took me a really long time to get to where I am now. So it just made me really happy just to see like the impact I had on these kids. And then I mentioned this briefly, but I had like opportunities to advocate for API education outside of the classroom. There's a bit of what I talked about, like legislation, meeting with the staffers of Senator Reynolds, etc. Here's a picture of me and like someone else I met at the State House when we were lobbying for it. Here's like a lot of pictures about everyone who attended. And for legislative action, I would say that it was really scary at first because I was a kid and there was a bunch of just adults there. But the group I was with really helped me prepare. And then I kind of realized that in legislative action, even though you're talking to politicians, those politicians are still people. And they're people just like us. And that just made it a lot easier for me to talk to them as well. Just some pictures of TAF, which basically started everything, all like the legislative action and stuff. And I just wanted to show this because when I like decided to go to TAF, I didn't know it would lead to me being able to have these opportunities. Like it was such a big risk for me, but I took it and it paid off greatly. So I just wanted to say that like, if there's even the slightest chance of like opportunity coming out of something you're not very sure about, I feel like generally it's best to take that chance. We already talked a little bit about this, like forms of activism. And I just wanted to also highlight the community part of activism. I feel like that's just so important to have a group of people in a community that you can all like band together for a single goal. Because I feel like when you're trying to be when you're trying to be an activist, it's really hard to get started because you're thinking of all the big things, you know? But I think it's also important to realize that we live life on a small scale. So those small changes that we can make can affect the lives of the other people near us. And that's why I believe community is really important. That's all I have. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abby. This was also so awesome. I'm so impressed with how sort of you immediately took action in terms of implementing the middle school activity. And I had one question there, which was that having 20 to 30 middle school kids show up for this activity is not a small feat at all. That is really, really incredible. Was this activity a part of like a class, like a social studies or history class, or is it like an after school activity? Can you elaborate more on like the setting there?
Yeah, of course. So my school has these things called like affinities, like Asian, like East Asian affinities, South Asian affinities. So what I did was I went to the director of these affinities for the middle school, and I was like, how about we do this for an affinity activity? And so I worked with him a lot, and then he also communicated with the leaders of the other affinities, which were all faculty. And it wasn't after school. Since I'm in high school, my schedule is really different from the middle school. So there was a little bit of difficulty in coordinating that. But it was during a period where the middle schoolers had a free block. So like they could come if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. And then there, it was 20 to 30. So I also had help from like a faculty as well.
Gotcha. And what is the like future of this program look like? Like, is this going to become a recurring activity? Like, what are your plans for taking it further, if there are any?
I'm hoping to get this implemented permanently for like May, which is API History Month, because I don't want this to stop when I leave school, because then no one else is going to have it. So I want it to be like continuous and ongoing. So that's why this year I'm kind of working with like the middle school dean and advisors to hopefully get this into the schedule so that this will be something they'll do every year.
Amazing. And what was the ideation process like for the activity creation? Like, how did you guys land on having this like career matching activity?
When I started like brainstorming, I didn't really know how to make it active for the middle schoolers. And on one of my meetings with one of the faculty, I was talking to her about this, and she was like, what if you have like, you play like a matching game where you just cut out faces and match them to their names. So I kind of took the idea and I ran with it. Since I wanted the middle schoolers to be creative, I was like, make your own story and share with your peers, etc.
Got it. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, wow, the fact that you're able to implement this in such a short time period is really incredible. And the fact that like there is a pipeline for future development like blows my mind. I'm asking you this question and not Brianna and Athena because you're a bit older than them. And I was wondering, did anything about the program or what you did after the program shape the way you think about your potential future career path? It is way too early for middle schoolers to think about that, which is why I'm asking Abby.
My future career path. Whoa, okay.
Well, I'm asking because a lot of the actions that you sort of like delineated for us are very like legislative focused, or, you know, shaping something within your school administration. And I was just wondering whether this is something you want to continue, you know, long term, or how you sort of see that fitting into your future plans.
Okay. I definitely do want to do this long term. I've seen a lot of people who are. The girl I met at the conference who introduced me to that local organization in my state, she's actually like a college student, grad student,
Wow, okay.
And I also met a lot of people at the State House who are like adults and who have families. and who have other careers besides like activism and advocation. And I definitely want to do something like that as well. I want to be like active in a way that will help AAPI, that will help education about AAPI. Even if it's not like my full-time career, I want to do something like what the people I met did.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so, so much, Abby. Just to quickly brief the rest of the audience. So Brianna, Athena, and Abby were 3 students within our course. There are a few other students that couldn't make it tonight. For them, they focused on bringing an Asian American club to their school, where they focused on identity and creating a space for folks of all backgrounds to sort of feel comfortable being within a, for the most part, largely white school district. And the other student also, like Abby, was interested in implementing API curriculum into their history lesson. So that's what her community project was focused on. But guys, thank you so much for sharing this. This is like incredible. I'm so proud of all of you. And this like warms my heart and makes me very, very happy. I want to give a few minutes for the audience to ask any questions if they have any, but totally understood that it's 9:30 on a Saturday night. So understand if there are also no questions. Okay, amazing. Or I guess not amazing, but you know, it's okay. Chen-Ying, do you want to maybe close for us?
I don't know what else to say because I'm still amazed. I'm still just like thinking about all the presentations, and also I feel like I got so inspired by it. I was taking notes and I was thinking, what are the things that I can do in my community once I move back? Well, like I think that the encourage to be very brave about taking the leap is very important. That's the thing that I see in all of our guest speakers, and youth. And I would say like, that's so important. And sometimes it just like it slips away, but it's great to have it back. Oh, we have someone Lena, 你是有问题吗? Sorry, like.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
Yes, actually, that's my daughter's name. 我就不开视频了哈. I'll say in English. I first wanted to congratulate to all the presenters today, and then also the facilitator. I think you girls have done an amazing job, and then especially the presenters. And you are so young at this young age. Just the fact that you are here tonight and presenting to a group of parents, that takes a lot of courage, and a lot of girls your age, including my own daughter. She's not with me, by the way, so she can't hear it. But even my own daughter, she's 12. I don't think she is able to do this. So give yourself a lot of credit, and you girls have done an amazing job. I do have a question. So actually, I have a couple of questions. One is related to the Asian identity. The other one is related to just adolescenthood. So the first question is, so at your school, have you encountered a situation where you feel like you are discriminated because of your race? For example, have people come up to you and just say "Ching Chang" or something like that? And if you have encountered things like that, and what was your response? And then how would you like to get support from the adults around you? Like your parents. How would you let your parents support you in this situation? So that's the first question, and then I'll ask a second non-Asian related question after you answer.
Yeah, does anyone have anything they want to share on that front?
When people like say rude remarks racist remarks to me. Sometimes if I'm not in the mood to start drama or arguing, I just ignore them and I pretend I didn't hear them. But if they're like persistent about it, and they won't stop and they just keep saying like rude, racist slurs at me or other racist remarks, I just kindly tell them to stop. And if they just keep going, I just tell the teacher, or I just explain to them how like it's not right, and how would they feel if someone said it to them. And then when I just like lecture them about it, they just stop most of the time because they just get bored of hearing me talk, and they just like, walk away.
Yeah, I guess to add on to that, is there anything that adults or parents could do to make you feel more comfortable telling them about these situations? Because I know when I was a student or younger and something like this happened, I wouldn't want to tell my parents because I was afraid of what they were going to say, or I was afraid of some sort of judgment by no fault of their own. Just I was not comfortable with that. Is there anything that you think that your parents or adults could do differently?
I think maybe if they're willing to, or if they had some past childhood experiences, if they had similar experiences and situations of what was currently happening to me right now, they could talk to me about it and tell us what they did to stick up for themselves, and just give like their own personal experience and how to handle the situation.
Gotcha. That is really helpful. So I guess paraphrasing that a little bit, does it help for parents to maybe show a more vulnerable side of their selves in order for you to feel comfortable doing so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really helpful to know. Lena's mom, do you want to ask your second question, and maybe either Brianna or Abby could answer it?
Yes, yeah, thanks, Jen, and thanks. Sorry, yeah, thanks for the answer earlier. So yeah, the second question is related to, given all of you are girls and at this age, 12, 13, 15. So if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to answer. But this is a question I'm asking as a mother of a 12-year-old. So you are entering an age where you are physically and emotionally growing up, right? You're entering teenagerhood or adolescencehood. So maybe there's no such word. I think my children told me I made up a word. But you can you can ignore that if I did. But so either yourself or your friends around you, when have you started or have you heard it come to like let's say being attracted or having by a boy or by boys, or have established relationships, for example, or started relationships, things like that. And then so, and if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to answer, but I guess my question really is, what would you expect your parents to support you and to help you? Like what would the parents do will make you feel comfortable around that you won't hide, whatever you do from your parents?
Maybe I can answer this question, just having gone through it, being a little bit older, and because I think this is a little bit more of a personal question, and not directly related to the curriculum. So I think the word that you're referring to definitely exists. I think it's, in my understanding, girlhood is probably how I would encapsulate it. And I think from my perspective, the reason that I was able to open up to my parents about, like any romantic relationships was because they were very non-judgmental when talking about relationships as a whole. So even if it wasn't directly related to me, for example, if I told them about my friends' relationships and they were very supportive and curious, and didn't judge my friends, then I felt more comfortable opening up about my own relationship because I know that they wouldn't judge me. But for a few of my friends, I think if their parents expressed any negative emotions towards folks they knew, or, WeChat groups, parents tend to talk about who's dating who. And I found that because my parents were a little bit more distanced from sort of like gossip, I would say, about high schoolers, I knew that they wouldn't expose anything I said and they would be supportive of me. So I think it's about having an open mind overall, because as a kid, you really internalize how your parents think in ways that are very subtle and subconscious. So I think a lot of it is just openness and overall towards relationships, not just your particular kids or relationship. Is that helpful?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for your.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Cindy, did you have your hand raised? Okay, I'm sorry. I might have accidentally seen that by accident.
Yeah. And I want to just add one thing. It's like, I really love what Jen said about that question. And also like linking back to the first question, I think being vulnerable is so important, but sometimes it's hard to find the balance, right? Sometimes we overshare. And like vulnerability is not just like being it's not about being soft, but more about being resilient and about showing that there are some challenges, but this is what I do to push through that. So what we bring to the dinner table is so important as parents. What are things that you share? What affect what your kids share with you? And like, for example, sometimes if like I have seen some parents sharing something like gossips or like judgmental thoughts about something, like then I would see like in most cases I would see that the kids would not feel comfortable to share what they are going through or like their dating life. So yeah, I think modeling is so important as well.
Yeah, just to add on one other thing there, I really do think that just the subconscious sort of day-to-day ways that we interact with younger folks really makes an impression on them. And for me personally, so I went to Harvard for college, and never in my life did my parents ever tell me, oh, like, I want you to go to Harvard or a good school. But all throughout my childhood, I saw them praise other children who had gotten into Ivy League schools. And that made much more of an impact on me than I think anyone expected it to, for better or for worse, who knows. But that just really resonates with me in terms of just everyday behavior translating into something that your kids mimic in terms of beliefs. Awesome. Thank you so much for that question. And if we have no other questions, I think we can end it there. Cheng-Ying, do you have anything to add?
No, no more. I just want to say thank you all for coming to here today, especially thanks to our guest speakers and Jen as a facilitator. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to message us in the WeChat groups or email us. And that's it. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you guys. And thank you so much to the speakers. Thank you so much, Athena, Abby, Brianna. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Great night.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.